I can tell you that I'm not the most athletic person in the world. I used to live in Seattle. I saw Mount Rainier every day. Never had a compulsion to go climb it. I don't, my wife started walking. So I offered, she said, I want you to come with me. So I offered to follow her in the car. So for me to be introducing someone who climbed Kilimanjaro is a real honor from my standpoint to be able to do that. I don't even identify with the risk or the concern or even the compulsion to be able to say, I want to do that. But he did. And so I'm not going to rain on his cloud. I want you to know this was really, as you read about what he did and what he went through and his slides and whatever we're going to do today, this is really going to be an interesting presentation for you. So please give a Rotary welcome to Greg Bond.
Well, I'd like to say I had not intended to go hike Kilimanjaro up to 2 weeks before we left. Another couple backed out and they called me up and they said, Greg, would you like to attend? And I turned to my wife and she said, I'm not going. And I said, well, I think I'd like to. It's on my bucket list and I don't know when I'll have another chance. So we took the opportunity and finally my wife decided she would go, but we went with the Wheelchair Foundation. So the Wheelchair Foundation, it's actually called Share the Love. It's located here in Orlando, and they ship wheelchairs all over the world. And so we do distributions, and it has I've been on, this is my 3rd distribution trip. I've been to Guatemala and Nicaragua, and this one was to Tanzania, and truly an amazing country. But the Wheelchair Foundation called Share the Love, they gave away 280 wheelchairs. So we were able to travel to different villages, and it was actually the Rotarians that set things up, and they normally set things up for Share the Love in the different countries they go to. So we ended up going to a bunch of different villages. The most memorable wheelchair that we gave away, though, was a gentleman that could not speak, and his father had passed away, and he and his mother lived in maybe a little 8x10 dirt floor hut. And we actually drove to him to give him a wheelchair. He couldn't walk. Most of the time he laid on a mat on the dirt floor. So it was just a tremendous thing to see him light up, to see that he had some mobility, and without his father, his mother couldn't lift him. He'd passed the age where she could lift him. So she had to ask for other people in the village to help move him around. But it was just tremendous to see that. And so it does change so many lives. So that's who I started the trip with. Well, finish the trip with as well, but there was 12 of us that went on the distribution, and we ended up starting for 7 days. We did wheelchair distributions and went on safari. So we did get to see a lot of the Serengeti. We were able to take a balloon ride over the Serengeti, which was just tremendous. My wife then headed back, and once the distribution and the safaris were done, we started our hike on Kilimanjaro. And so Kilimanjaro, for those of you who aren't aware, highest peak in Africa, 19,341 feet. That altitude, I'd never experienced that before, but it was a little different than I'm used to, it being a flat grounder here in Florida. So we did hike through 5 zones, going through pretty much a jungle type zone, hot, humid, getting up into the area where the trees aren't, are no longer growing. They're just shrubs, back up where there is no trees, and then up and then above the clouds, and eventually to the top, the ice covered top. So just a tremendous time. Took us 7 days. So they gave us a little sheet with a climbing profile on it, and said how many miles we would hike each day. And I looked and I said, 4 miles in a day? What are we gonna do for the rest of the day? And I'm here to tell you that that 4 miles took us a long time, and I was not ready to do anything else by the time that I get done with that 4 miles. So we went anywhere between 4 and 12 miles a day for 7 days. And do we, by a show of hands, how many people are older than 89 years old? Nobody older than 80, and one person older than 89 years old. I want to put you on the spot. But the oldest person to summit Mount Kilimanjaro was 89 years old. So that means everybody has an opportunity, right? Now, I'm sure some of you are probably waiting till you're 90 to break that record. So, but the guides up there are just absolutely tremendous. Oh, still not. A little help. There we go. So the guy, our head guide, actually met us at our hotel, and he wanted to kind of brief us on what we were about to undertake. He checked all of our gear. They give you a gear list, and you're supposed to come prepared with all of the stuff. If you're not prepared, it's then his job to make sure you get all of the things that you need to make it a successful hike. So he came, had a big meeting together. There was 5 of us. He then went to each of our rooms and made us spread out all of our gear and went through the checklist and checked everything off. Because once you get up there, there's not much of a chance to get anything back. You know, what you got's what you got. So you're carrying it on your back. So it did take us 7 days. A lot of that time, I think we probably could have done it quicker, but a lot of the time was just getting acclimated to the altitude. So we would hike, and then they'd hike us up a bit higher, and then we'd hike back down. They wanted to get us up higher to get our lungs used to that higher altitude, and then we'd hike back down and sleep. So it was, I was most amazed at the guides. They made it as easy for us as possible. I mean, it wasn't easy, but they made it just a pleasurable experience. They would feed us breakfast in the morning. And the breakfast was porridge, and they'd have some granola and raisins and stuff to mix in, and eggs. And they tried to feed you so much because they know you're going to need those extra calories. And at altitude, typically you're not hungry. That altitude takes away the hunger and takes away the thirst, and you're not wanting to eat or drink a lot. So they were kind of force feeding us. And but we would eat breakfast, we would strap on our packs and take off. The guides would take down the whole camp, pack it all up, throw it in up to 90-pound packs on their backs, run by us, beat us to the next campsite, set it all up, and we got there. The tents are set up. The mess tent is ready. They got the meals started. They've got hot water for us to clean up from the day. It was truly amazing. I mean, they are just athletes. And you hug these guys, and there's nothing there. It's like, oh my goodness, they're just skin and bones. So our particular guide had been a porter for 10 years. He'd been then an assistant guide for 5 years, and now he was on his 3rd year of being a head guide. So he knew the trails, he knew what to expect, he knew virtually nothing that we went through he hadn't seen before. We did take a 74-year-old up with us, and he made it to the summit. We did have a few problems, but I'll talk about that in another slide here. So, but the climbing experience day to day, it wasn't well-groomed trails, a lot of loose rocks, a lot of places you could fall. I hiked with hiking poles the whole way. A lot of people did not, but I felt more secure with hiking poles in my hands. So if I did slip, I'd have an opportunity. A lot of the porters or the assistant guides would be, if there was an area where you could fall, you know, there's an area where you're slipping across and you got your nose up against the wall, and you know, it's a pretty good drop off. They'd kind of be there at the sides, kind of, you know, making sure that nobody slipped or misstepped. So they really took just wonderful care of us. And you know, like I said, great experience. Created some camaraderie. We started out with 5. One of the gentlemen, unfortunately, he had some prostate problems, and he forgot his pills. So he couldn't relieve his bladder. So they're telling us to drink 4 to 5 liters of water a day. And he was not able to release that water. So he unfortunately had to go back down after day 2, just because he couldn't let his bladder go. So But I ended up tenting with a 26-year-old. 26-year-old was full of vim and vigor. I'm 61, so he heard me snore a little bit, probably a lot. He also, on the very first day, he hadn't broke in his hiking boots. So guess what he got on his heels? Big old blisters. And he learned a very valuable lesson. I spent the first part of every morning taking moleskin out and having him lay on his back where I could tend to his blisters. It was, like I said, something I think he learned that he's going to break in his hiking boots before he does a major hike again. This was our 74-year-old. So this was our mess tent. And his name was Les. And Les got to the point the night before our summit attempt, he just wasn't eating. He wasn't drinking. Now he's trained for this and been going to the gym and trying to work out and get ready for about 6 months. And finally, I just, in our guide, tried to say something, but he wasn't very forceful. So I decided somebody needed to be forceful, and that was going to be me. So I told Les, I said, Les, on known certain terms, if you don't eat this food, you're not going to make it tomorrow. You've been training for 6 months. Do you want to make this or not? And he kind of, yeah, but I'm not hungry. I said, Les, come on. So we started playing airplane. Come on, you're coming in for a landing, Les, open up. He wasn't too happy with me, but he opened his mouth. He kept eating and eating. And I said, the other thing is you're not drinking. And if you don't drink, you're not going to make it. In fact, Les, what I want to see is I want to see you pee clear. If your pee isn't clear, you ain't making it. So his nickname became Clear. So we filled him full of liquids. And that night they sent us to bed at 6 o'clock because they were getting us back up at midnight. They're going to feed us a little something. And then we started the climb at 1 o'clock in the morning. Well, he got up, made it to the mess tent. And he said, you're never going to believe what happened, guys. And he said, what? He said, well, you know, they give us a little hot water bottle to put in the bottom of your sleeping bag to hopefully to keep your feet warm because it was quite cold. And he had decided that we had overstuffed him so much and he had so much food and liquid in his belly that he was going to put that hot water bottle right on his stomach. Well, does anybody know what happens when somebody's asleep and you stick their hand in warm water? He pooped the bed a lot. So we kind of teased him about that for a bit, but we said, you know, would you rather have us fed you and got you full of liquids and peed the bed and made the summit, or would you rather us let you go and not made the summit? And he goes, no, you guys, thank you so much. You did the right thing. So that's Clear. We've told his wife his nickname, so he's the other thing that really, and a lesson learned for me is, let me grab these. We had 2 types of water bottles. So we had a water bottle that you screw the top off of to take a drink, right? So it's protecting all of this with the cap, right? Me being the smart hiker that I was, took this type where it's more convenient. You just pop up that straw and take a sip. And I thought, well, I'll obviously drink more water with this. It's insulated, so this will be the better choice. What I quickly learned was I was the only one that was getting diarrhea. So I couldn't figure out why. They had a ginger tea type mixture, and I kept drinking that, and it would go away, and then it'd come back, and then it'd go away, then it'd come back. And that's kind of one of the last things you want on a hike. And we got to the very, very end of the hike, and my guide, head guide came up to me and said, Greg, I figured it out. I said, what? He goes, it's your water bottle. He said, as you're hiking, very dusty, very dirty, right? All that dust and debris is filling in, right? And getting down in all the crooks and crevices of this straw. So when I'd pop it up, I was constantly feeding my belly full of bacteria from the darn water bottle. So the morning of the hike, I started out at 1 a.m. walking like this. with my headlight on. It's obviously dark and you're walking up 4,000 feet for 8 hours. And I did it clenching my sphincter muscle. Not the most enjoyable thing, but the other thing that happened during the hike was I thought I would be real tech, right? So they recommend you have 4 layers for summit night. So I kept a separate pack with just my summit gear, and it was a wicking shirt underneath with a hood, and then it was a down jacket, and then they wanted you to have a rain jacket for your rain gear, and then they wanted you to have a big Gore-Tex jacket, 10 below up top. So I thought, well, I'll take this rain jacket, but this rain jacket happens to be special because it's electric. So I thought, you know what? I'll plug in that battery. And when I need it, I can just unzip my Gore-Tex. If I get cold, just push that battery button. And now I got some heat. The problem was when I geared up in the morning and put all my gear on, somehow that button got pushed. So I started the hike on full heat, climbing up. So I got about halfway up and the guide came to me and he said, Greg, what's the problem? You seem to be lagging a little bit today. And I said, well, I've got diarrhea, so that's part of it. And I said, but I'm just so hot. I feel like I've got a fever. And he goes, a fever? What the heck's going on? So he said, unzip your jacket. I unzipped my Gore-Tex and he stuck his hand in and he goes, get that thing off. And I said, I'm not taking it off. It's freezing up here. He goes, strip it off. He stripped it off me. He made me take off my rain jacket, and then I realized once I started taking it off, I saw that it was on. So I turned it off, but the damage had already been done. I was soaked. My wicking layer was soaked. My next layer, my down jacket was soaked. And he took this off and put my Gore-Tex back on and said, you got no choice. Like that's how you got to go. So I was a little physically fatigued by the time I got to the top, but never been to 19,000 square feet or 19,000 feet. So it was again, I thought here I go. I force less and I scream it less and feed less and lots of water and less, and he's going to make it and I'm not going to make it. But luckily I was able to make it. But we had a support staff of 21 people supporting us up the mountain. So like I said, these guys were just specimens. They were crazy strong. You know, most of them do 10, 12 trips a year up the mountain. And it's crazy to see them just running by you over these rocks and you know, you can almost not believe it. But just so friendly and so welcoming, and they love what they're doing. They earn a great wage for their part, you know, for that part of Tanzania. It's a real blessing for them to be porters and to be assistant guides and guides up the mountain. They do earn, in comparison to a lot of the other people in the area, they earn a tremendous salary. So we had a couple things. I don't know if any of you were here. I spoke on the 18th on taxes, so a little less exciting topic, but I love practical jokes. So we took a fake rat, and every morning our camp guide would come and service our porridge, our oatmeal out of the bowl, and he'd have five plates and then 5 bowls upside down. So we just happened to sneak that rat in underneath the last bowl. So he serves the first one, and he takes the plate off and he puts the bowl over and he serves it, and he lifted it up just enough that rat's tail came out, and he saw that thing and he went. So he kind of didn't want us to see. So he turns around and he kind of looks at it and kind of picks it up and so I asked our head guide, I said, is it okay if I play jokes like that? And he goes, we need laughter up here. That's what we need. So he really encouraged it. And we had a good time. He immediately took it and went and got the cook with the rat as well. So he definitely played that one forward. So here's us summiting. Again, they got us up at midnight, fed us breakfast. Started at 1 a.m. We summited just a little before 8 o'clock, right as the sun was coming up. So we got some great sunrise pictures on top of the mountain. The first area that you hit, it's called Stella Point, and that's at about 18,500 feet or something like that. And they say you hit the top then, but that's not the real top. So some people stop there. I can't imagine if you've made it that far why you don't go to the ultimate top. But it is quite a hike up that additional 500 meters up to the very top. It's all snow covered. Sometimes there's a little open trail, but most of the time it's snow covered, slippery. But you can see we got up to the top. So I'm wearing my Cheer the Love hat up there. I had to take it up to get a picture of the Cheer the Love hat. I don't know if you can see it. I'm the one second to the left there that next to the big tall 26-year-old. He was 26, about 225 pounds. He's an athlete. In fact, his brother, I don't know him, Trey Hendrickson for the Bengals. Apparently one of those who follow football. I don't follow football that much, but that's his older brother. So there's us at the very end. And like I said, my biggest lesson learned is watch my technology. Those heated jackets sound good, but just about killed me. And also my wonderful water bottle. So those are the two things. I think I did go at REI over here by the Winter Park. What is it? Winter Park. Winter Park Village. They had a couple ladies come in and tell about their time hiking up Kilimanjaro and gave me some pointers. Very valuable. They went into great detail about gear and that sort of thing. So again, if anybody wants to do it, I'd highly recommend, talking to somebody who's done it and get some pointers. Anybody have any inclinations to hike Kilimanjaro? Has anybody, I should ask first, anybody hiked Kilimanjaro? No, nobody. I see somebody back here. Yes, the Wheelchair Foundation is actually going to have another trip back to Tanzania in March. There's a resort over there that is just heads and shoulders above any place else we stayed. It was called Chin Chin, and they have let's see, got it. They have set up it's a tent, but it's a hotel room. They've created a boardwalk system where you walk way out and your tent / room is way away from everything else. It's half done in rock and half done in tent, and the whole front of it. So your bed is setting here, and then the front is just a screen. And it's open one way, so you can see one way out. So you wake up in the morning and there's zebras and giraffe and wildebeest and baboons. And during the middle of the night, hearing those animals out there was a little concerning to my wife. Well, I guess I would have to admit to me as well. But it was truly amazing. This place, they've really done it up right. There's an outside shower. Well, there's an inside shower, also an outside shower. And they've just really done a great job of allowing you to be in a safe environment, but yet see the animals and not spook the animals. And we had to call, if you wanted to leave your tent / room, you had to call and have somebody escort you back to the main area because they didn't want you out alone. But something that, again, if you do go, Chin Chin is definitely worth the money, just for the experience. So I don't know where my time's at. We have any questions? Yeah.
So our other mic wasn't working, so here we go.
We stayed at a cabin 9,500 feet, and the altitude sickness was difficult. The whole week, I didn't really recover 100%, got better, but what is 19,000 feet like?
I really felt like I was drunk. And then being fatigued on top of it, I did not feel good at the top. I just wanted to get down. I think probably the base camp that we started up was 15.8. So it was even hard to sleep. You know, like I said, they sent us to bed at 6 o'clock at night. They said, get some shut eye before we start out. And it's like, I'm not tired. I can't breathe. You know, I don't think I slept. Maybe I slept an hour before they got us back up. But you know, everybody's excited, and you know, you just hear that excitement. So it was difficult. It was much more difficult. Again, I wish I would have had more time to prepare. I think I would have exercised differently and prepared differently. I'm in fairly good shape, but not the shape that I wish I would have been in when I started. But again, there's a 26-year-old that probably, you know, like I said, learned some lessons with those blisters because he had pretty big blisters. But that I think was the biggest issue was the blisters, and then less our 74-year-old, the altitude really affected him to the point that he wasn't eating and drinking. Yeah, Bill.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. Why did you spend so much time of the hiking in the nighttime?
I'm sorry. Could you?
Is there a reason why you spent so much of the time hiking at night?
Well, the only time we hiked at night was to go up the summit because they wanted us to be at the top at sunrise because they wanted us to be able to get the pictures. Plus the morning, it's calmer. And so they didn't know what type of winds might pick up in the afternoon. So they really prefer people to summit early morning to be able to get themselves back down in case there is bad weather.
Yeah, there's a great book about, I guess, going up. It was either Everest or whatever. And he talked about toilet paper. How was that with your diarrhea situation? Did you need more toilet paper? Did you have to buy some at one of the levels?
I just ran down to the 7-Eleven and it was no problem. No, it was, they had set up a tent for us as bathroom facilities. So that's the other thing I think that I'd recommend everybody that you get a very, very good pair of earplugs. I wish I have some for shooting and I didn't take those with me. I wish I would have, because you hear in the middle of the night, the zipper going up, the second zipper from the inside, and then the zipper on the latrine. So you get 3 zippers and then 3 zippers coming down once they're done. And everybody's constantly getting up and going because obviously you're drinking, 5-6 liters of liquid during the day. So typically everybody's got to go at night, and that's a little disruptive to the sleep.
So since you're in high altitude environments, is there not an option to bring oxygen, or is that not at all suggested?
They have oxygen, but they prefer not to allow people to use it. They use it only in emergency type situation. So they did have 1 canister of oxygen in an event that somebody did have an actual, emergency and actually needed it. But yeah, only one of our group, there's a drug, I can't even remember what it's called, that can help you with the altitude. Our 74-year-old is the one that took it, and we think that might be another reason. Some of the, these drugs these days, right? They list all of the things and and he was having a lot of those symptoms. And so we don't know if it was because of the drug or the alcohol or I'm sorry, not the alcohol, the drug, or maybe it was the alcohol. Maybe he had something in his water bottle that we didn't know about. No, but we didn't know, if it was because of that or not. The other 3 of us did not take any of the altitude drugs. So
I have 3 questions. One is, what did your backpacks weigh? Did they give you extra food or gear in case something happened, you had to be up there longer? And how windy was it at the top?
I'll take them one by one. My pack weighed about 25 pounds. They allowed me to take another 33 pounds of gear that a porter carried for me that I didn't have to physically carry myself. The food, I took all sorts of extra snacks. I don't think I ate but 2 different snacks. They were feeding you so much. It was just like, okay, guys, enough. I don't want any more food. So, I think I just took some trail mix, 1 bag of trail mix that I mixed up myself, and I ate that throughout the 7 days. But I didn't have, like most everybody else, just didn't have that amount of appetite. And I'm sorry, what's your other question?
How windy was it? How windy
When
was
when
it?
you
at the time?
top when we summited, it wasn't that windy. There was wind there, but it wasn't like massive gusts. They said, again, at times it can be very, very dangerous. You get swept off the mountain. But that's really why they want you to summit to kind of at sunrise, because that's kind of a calm time.
Were there any animals that you ran into that could be frightening? And did anything happen that was really, really funny?
Animals, once you get above a certain altitude, there's not many animals. You see a few birds here and there. Some, not next to nothing. They said occasionally maybe a hyena might chase some dik-diks or something up into higher altitudes. But yeah, we didn't have to worry about that during the safari. Now the elephants and the lions and the cheetahs and everything else we saw, the hyenas. Yeah, those are a bit scary in your open bus or open vehicle that they're taking around in the safari. But again, I think the animals there are so used to you. One of the most amazing things was yes. Funny. The funniest thing I think was just pulling the jokes on the porters, or on the camp manager. The other thing that we did is in part of my pack, I had a rubber cockroach. So we put we were having stew one night, and again, I cleared it with a head guide, and we threw it in the stew. Well, the guy comes in to serve the stew, and luckily I got the cockroach. So he puts it on my plate, and I went, "What's that? Where did that come from?" And he didn't say a word. His eyes just got big, and he took the spoon and he scooped it off my plate and he threw it back in the pot quick. And I said, "Oh no, that's not how it works." I said, "What's that in the pot?" And I took my spoon and I put it back on my plate. I said, "What is that?" Not a word from him. His eyes are just, and I said, "You know what? That looks pretty good." And I put it in my mouth and kind of swished it around and then stuck it out like I was sticking out my tongue. And at that point, he realized it was a joke. So he took that again back and played a trick on the. The last day we put on the bowls, we put his tip under the bowl. So it started getting to the point where every morning he'd come in and look under the bowl before he started anything else. So he picked it up and saw his tip, and he was like, "Oh, guys, thank you."
Hi, a quick question. So why Mountain Kilimanjaro? Why not any other mountains?
Well, Mount Kilimanjaro, because of the Wheelchair Foundation, right? That's where they were headed. They had it all arranged for me. I didn't have to do much planning. All that I did was sign up and pay my fee, and they had everything else arranged. So that's really why, because it was on my list, and I said I can do this, check this off the bucket list, with very little effort on my part.
Did the porters or any of the other camp management ever play any jokes back on you?
No, they didn't. Oddly enough, I left all my joke paraphernalia with them, though. The camp manager asked if he could keep it, and I said, "Of course you can."
If
We
you go back,
also have a rubber snake, so
if you go back, they're gonna get their revenge on you.
oh, yeah, I'm sure they will.
Greg, I don't think wait, one more. And while I'm getting over there, I understand there are 7 peaks in the world that mountain climbers attempt to do.
Yeah.
Any plans for any of those other mountains?
Nope.
What was it like coming down?
Coming
Easier,
down was
harder,
it
more
was
difficult?
a lot easier. Coming down through altitude and going to the lower altitudes, you start to breathe easier. You start to, things start to get better. The appetite starts to return. So it was much easier. We spent 5 days going up. Like I said, a lot of that was just to get acclimated and get your body acclimated. So, yeah, 2 days coming down was very easy. There's a trail coming down. It's a lot of loose rock. It looks like maybe in the wet times, in the rainy season, that, a lot of water travels around that area, but just loose rock. So I almost felt like if I had skis, I could kind of just slalom down there and, make it down a lot quicker, but it was pretty loose. And, again, none of us fell. well, I guess I fell on my, I think maybe each of us fell once on our butts, but nobody got injured and it wasn't like a habitual thing where we were falling.
Yeah, I think I heard you say that your base camp was like 15,000 feet.
Yeah, it's 15.8 was our base camp.
So you went, well, 4,500 to 5,000, I guess, what you did.
Yeah.
What would be, not being personal here, but what would be an average cost for a group that wanted to do that?
It was $4,000 for each individual to go up. And that included everything except the tip for the guides. So they recommended, 10% plus for tips for the guides. We felt they just did such a great job for us that we tipped them much more than that. And then I ended up leaving probably at least half of my gear. I left my hiking boots and my jackets and my everything except for my electric jacket. I probably should have given him that too, but if my power, you plug in for your phone, power charger, and just a whole host, my gaiters, because they need that stuff, right? They don't have Amazon. It doesn't deliver overnight, right? So I just thought, what would you like? And he said I could use those and those and those and those and those. And those. So you want this too? And then I had also, if you ever decide to do it, they can use anything you take over there. So I actually went to Goodwill and just started for $4, you buy a jacket, right? I started buying anything that I could. So I took a big package over there of extra stuff that I didn't plan on using just to leave with them. That was a recommendation from the ladies that I'd went to their presentation and heard them talk about their experience.
Greg, time for one last question, probably a bigger question than you have time for. A friend of mine actually climbed Kilimanjaro and died on the way down.
Wow.
What are the dangers of coming down? Is that descending too quickly?
I would guess so. I mean, there's different routes you can go up. I've got a map here that shows all the different routes, but there's some routes that take 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. I think there's one that takes as long as 10 days. So I think it's getting your body acclimated. I don't know how he died. Was it an aneurysm? I would imagine of some sort. But that's tragic. I honestly don't know. I know there was the ladies that I had heard speak said that one of the guides fell off one of the ridges and killed himself or was killed in the process. So yeah, there's at a lot of the camps, there's signs posted that says, there's helicopters up to 15.8. Above that, they have to drag you down to get you to 15.8 before the helicopter can pick you up. And it's $3,500 for the first passenger and $2,000 for every passenger after that. So I said, all right, if I've got to go, I want to be the second one.
Greg, thanks for sharing. What an incredible story.
Absolutely.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, a little thank you for
Right.
coming today. Great story.
Chris, thank you so
Great
much.
story. So Everest is not on your list?
It's definitely not on the list. Base camp there is at 19,000, so I'm that's about as far as I want to go.